Today I'm going to show you how to use gold or silver leaf to add stunning embellishments to your drawings. I'll be using this technique to create an intricate and stylized dress pattern that shimmers and brings this whole piece of artwork to life. I'll walk you through this process step by step, making it easy to achieve beautiful and eye-catching results. This tutorial was taken from my full course I offer on my Patreon site called Gilded Mixed Media Drawing. So let's get started. So at this point, I've done most of the underdrawing for this image, and this is one of the last stages of the completed piece. I've taken a look at the dress pattern from the reference image, and what I've done is I've tried to simplify it and make it into more of a graphical pattern. There's no way I'm going to get all the details of the lace in there. It's impossible. And also because I'm using gold leaf, I want it to be a striking feature in this image, and I want to take advantage of how I can use this properly by making it a graphical pattern and making it very simple and easy to do. I notice that there are a series of large round flowers with a series of winding vine-like leaves, and it's punctuated by a number of dots and the odd little round circle with a flower in it. So I take that pattern and I begin to work it out in a preliminary drawing, and once I'm happy with it, I then transfer that idea over to my finished drawing. I'm not going to work it out on the finished drawing itself because then I take the risk of ruining the drawing. So I make sure that I'm happy, I've done my preliminary work, and now I'm ready to transfer that pattern onto the real drawing. I use a light colored watercolor pencil, which is the same kind of pencils that I use to do the drawing. They're light, they're easy to use, they erase easily, and they have the benefit of being used as watercolor. I start by establishing some large circular areas that will function as flowers, and then I work out a balanced pattern. Once I've established those larger shapes and flowers, then I can go and create all the interweaving vines and leaves with the space that's left over. And I just keep working that pattern out until it's a pleasing pattern. And once I'm finished and I've got all the details in place, mapped out in watercolor pencil, I'm then ready to start applying my adhesive sizing. So now that we've completed our dress pattern and we've transferred it over onto our good drawing paper and we've done our testers and we're clear about how we want it to look, it's time to put the metal leaf or gilding on our image. We start with our metal leaf sizing, which is an acrylic adhesive, and 2 small mixing cups, one for rinsing water and the other to actually mix our sizing up in. We don't use a lot. I put a daub about the size of a quarter in one of my dishes, and then I add a dye to it so that I can actually see what I'm doing as I'm laying that sizing down. In this case, I'm using a tiny smear of red watercolor paint. I use a separate, larger brush to mix the paint with the sizing, and then I immediately rinse it off and dry my brush, because if I leave it on there, it will destroy the brush as the sizing dries out and then begins to harden. In this particular case, in order to get the kind of detail I want with the dress pattern, I'm looking to use a very small brush. In the end, I ended up using a 10x0 brush because when the brush is wet and it has the sizing on it, the brush tends to splay out and create a wider line than the tip actually indicates. So the smaller the better in this case, but you'll choose the brush size that is appropriate for whatever your image requires. To apply the sizing to my drawing, I've taken my image on my board off of my upright easel. I don't want to risk any of my sizing dripping or flowing in a direction that I can't control. For the purposes of filming, I've perched it on an angled drafting board, but you can just lay it flat on a table just fine. I also cover the charcoal drawing with some tissue paper or just regular paper if that's all you have, because I don't want my hand smearing the charcoal everywhere as I'm applying my sizing or my metal leaf and rubbing it with my brushes or my hand and creating a lot of mess and a lot of smudges. Okay, so now I've got my little dish of glue here, and I've got my brush here, and you can see just how tiny it is. It's a 10x0 brush. That's what I'm going to use, and I found that that really is what was needed to get the kind of line that I want. And this is a 0. I thought it would be fine. It has a tendency to splay out too much, so it just really depends on the design that you're doing for your particular piece that you're going to have to experiment with brush sizes. Also, when you're working with your brushes, make sure that you've got a little dish of water there because this glue does begin to solidify. So you need to be washing them off and keeping them pliable and clean so that the glue doesn't turn them into, you know, kind of a hard rubbery tip. So you want to make sure that water is nearby all the time and that you're regularly wiping and cleaning them off. I've got just a paper towel here that it's damp, and so, you know, I can be in between just pulling it off, dipping my brushes in the water, swirling them around, getting them clean, and then wiping them off on a regular basis. I'm just putting my glue in there. I don't want it dripping and blobbing, and I'm just going to begin the process. Putting this glue, just tracing over these lines. Now, because this is watercolor pencil that we've gone on, the moisture will actually start to darken those lines as well. And you'll start to see that. But you definitely need to have a little color in your glue, otherwise you have no idea what you're doing. You're working completely blind. And I'm not pressing down, I'm just dragging the tip along the paper, because if I push down, the bristles, of course, will splay out and then create a blobby effect. I'm getting a bead worked up here, so I'm going to pull that off, go back in. I don't want that bead there because if it falls off the brush, it'll make a blob. Not to worry about having to do this too fast because this glue is active for hours. I continue to work my way through my image, and I'm going from the top to the bottom. I want to make sure that I work in a way that I'm not touching the glue that I've already put down. So I have to make sure that I'm working my way down over untouched areas of my drawing as I'm laying my sizing down. Working lightly with the tip of your brush and not pressing down hard with your brush is the key. You don't want the bristles to splay out and create a thicker line. So dip your brush in the glue and then just work with the tip lightly and quickly and smoothly. Remember, you can always go back and do touch-ups later on. So you can see this is almost like the construct, the need to keep it very graphical, because of the nature of the medium. Okay, so this has been let to dry and it's tacky now to the touch. And I've got my silver leaf sheets here. I've also got a bowl here. These are for catching the little bits and pieces. You can see I've got it for gold here, and these are all the little scraps that come off once you start removing the gold and silver leaf. So I have these little bowls where I keep these extra bits because they do come in handy. And then I've got a series of brushes here. This is the one that I'll use to burnish. It's a synthetic brush, but it's nice and stiff. It's got a good snap to it, so it's very good for burnishing. I've also got a gilding brush here, and this one's very, very soft. It's almost like a makeup brush. And then I've got another one here, which is a hog's hair brush, which is a lot stiffer. And what that'll do is allow you to get in there and really scrub out any little bits that aren't coming off in these really detailed areas. It's an issue with a pattern like this. It's not always necessary for other things. So anyway, I'll be using these 3 brushes, and we're just going to start. Oddly enough, for all the effort, the gilding is a huge part of the look of this drawing, but actually it's not a huge part of the process. The setup and the drawing, all that stuff is far more. The gilding goes pretty fast. So I'm just going to take my leaf and I'm going to put it on. I'm going to make sure everything's covered. And then I might have, like, I've got this little tiny thing sitting out here, and that's where some of these little scraps come in handy. Then I'm going to use my little brush here, and I'm going to burnish. So I can press down really hard there. Then I'm just going to take that same brush and I'm going to begin to lift. And that's why you need the little bowl. Catch all these little bits and pieces, all these extra bits that are floating around. And then I'm going to take my hog's hair brush, and that's what I'm going to go in the little areas that are like in the flowers and all this sort of thing, where it's very, very delicate, and that starts to pull. So I missed something in here, got a few little things. I like to put an edge along here. And I'm actually going to have some of the little, I've missed some here. And I'm going to have some little dots sort of fading away like little stars in the sky or something. But I've got most of it down now. And I can go in and start to rework it. Okay, so I've stuck my silver leaf on. And I take my wax paper and I just start to burnish it with this brush. And then I just start using this brush and I just start pulling it away. I also use my vacuum cleaner as I work my way through this process, so I'm picking up all the little tiny floating bits and pieces without having to scrub my drawing too much. So you can see how the different light really changes the nature of how this piece looks. The piece really has this, this ability to morph and change depending on how the light is hitting it. We'll see that as we get further into the drawing as well. So you can see how the light is catching it. Now when I move it back up on my drawing board again, the light is hitting it in a way that it's highly reflective. When you sit it up straight again, the light will be hitting it from different angles and you'll be able to see that there's a kind of a shimmering, luminescent kind of effect that happens as well. So there you have it. Adding gold or silver leaf to your drawings is such a simple way to create luxurious and intricate details that will really make your artwork stand out. And it's a lot of fun to play with these different techniques. And it's not even expensive. A package of 100 gold leaf sheets will only cost you about $10. So if you're excited to keep learning and you'd like to bring your portrait drawing skills up to the next level, please go to my Patreon site and there you'll find a whole host of portrait drawing courses that are perfect for artists of all levels. Simply go to the link at the end of this video and it'll take you to Patreon and you'll find out how to get started. And if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more transformational art videos coming your way. Thanks very much for watching. And we'll see you in the next video. And in the meantime, happy drawing.